That brings us to science of survival. If Dianetics had become a wildfire movement by the summer of 1950, what with LRH lecturing the public and students from coast to coast, he was yet still driving forth on his next target of research. He'd already delineated it in the closing pages of Dianetics, a further research into life force. That is, of course, what science of survival is. As Eldredge describes in the book, the primary manifestation of theta is affinity, reality, and communication. Moreover, what Eldredge presents in this book is the theta-mest theory, meaning the interaction of life, theta, with the physical universe, mest. And of course, how this interaction determines one's position on the tone scale. As for the backdrop, Eldredge had already begun work on the tone scale chart in August of 1950, and by December of 1950, he was drafting the Chart of Human Evaluation in Palm Springs, California. Then, with chart in hand, he traveled to pre-communist Cuba in March of 1951, whereupon he authored Science of Survival itself. Again, as many of you know, each chapter is devoted to an individual column of that chart, and use of the chart in combination with the text provides an exact prediction of human behavior. That is, use the chart to spot one or two traits of an individual, and you can know the rest, predicting their behavior patterns and what they will do in any given situation. And let's be clear, the Chart of Human Evaluation is not only the primary tool of a case supervisor, but the theta-mest theory and the tone scale is the basis of our entire grade chart. In other words, to say the book is important would be a gross understatement. The book is broken into two parts, the first on the tone scale itself, and the second on Dianetic processing. Which brings us to this. When Science of Survival was published, it was presented with the subtitle of Simpler and Faster Techniques. If that's the case, then how come so many find it so complex? Well, as a first answer, I can tell you this. If you haven't read book one, then why bother with Science of Survival? Because, and let's be very clear, these books do build one breakthrough upon another. Specifically, Science of Survival is filled with book one terminology, and Eldredge doesn't spend time repeating what book one already contains. But returning to our theme tonight, as you no doubt have also realized, this too was a dictated book. And since the transcriptionist and editor were the first to touch this book, the very book defining the various tone levels, it then follows that they were also the first 1-1 since the tone level was discovered. And here's what I mean. They were so indecisive, they really didn't know where to begin or end the sentence. Specifically, here's where they weren't sure if it should be a comma or a period, and so they split the difference and used a semicolon, which a good percentage of readers never understood in the first place. And given one semicolon begets another, it wasn't long before it was the march of the semicolons, frustrating readers and lengthening lines to word clears from one end of Scientology to another. Not that I want to overstate the matter or badmouth somebody who was trying, but when you consider that even when they didn't use one of their multitudes of semicolons, they still started the sentence in the wrong place. And when you further consider that when the book was returned to its original and intended form, it reads with the simplicity of a self-analysis, it really does bear comment. So let me put it this way. Yes, this book too is now perfect. And the number of incorrect instances of punctuation that had to be corrected, hang on to your seat. 3,825. So yes, you were right, something just didn't make sense. Whereupon, what more is there to say? Students were previously spending weeks upon weeks digging their way through this book. Perhaps suffering is a better word. And yet many students currently on a pilot program are completing this 550-page book in as little as 22 hours. Even if you double or triple that time, you are still looking at 1/10 previous times. So for the first time, you have LRH's text as he originally intended, providing the very basics of the tone scale, the basic laws of theta, ARC, including their interaction on the tone scale, and so it goes, chapter by chapter. For any who have ever had difficulty with the book, it's now so clear you will actually wonder where the confusion ever was. because the book is that simple, just as LRH wrote it. Then combine it with the LRH definitions and axioms, as well as a glossary of terms and phrases that includes definitions of over 1,500 words, and it's no more bugs. Finally, add to it the Science of Survival lectures, wherein LRH presents the Theta Mest theory and the chart of human evaluation, and you have the fully three-dimensional view. So yes, it's no overstatement to say we have LRH's Science of Survival for the first time, and the fundamental components of life itself, as LRH gives us here in one of the lectures from that series.
This theta is not something intangible. We can feel it. Have you ever looked at a girl, or you ladies have ever looked at a young man, and suddenly realized that you felt a great deal for this person? Just sort of an interchange. I know I was very young one time and it was spring, and I swear, between a girl and myself, there was enough theta flowing so that it's a wonder that you couldn't hear it crackle like sheet lightning. Never felt so healthy in my life, by the way. Now, here are simple and even homely examples of this great and ponderous basic theory at work. You've sensed it, you know about it. The component parts of theta may be many, but we know three of them. We know three of them. And that's affinity, communication, and reality. You take affinity, communication, reality, put them all together, you get every manifestation of thought that you can think of. As a matter of fact, you can even derive all the mathematics there are from these three things. And that's not a wild statement. I sat down one day and tried to figure out how calculus was evolved, how logic was evolved, each time using only ARC. Affinity, communication, reality. And I found out to have a mathematics, you had to have each one of these. If you had all three of these, you had an understanding, or an evaluation, or a computation. But if you drop one of them out, you don't have a mathematics. You drop one of them out, you don't have a life either. Now, these three things are interdependent, and one could say that they are the component characteristics of theta.